You're listening to a podcast by the Center for Action and Contemplation. To learn more, visit cac.org.
Hey everybody, Jacqui Lewis here. Welcome to this second season of Love, Period. This season we're focusing our conversations on my new book, Fierce Love, a bold path to ferocious courage and rule-breaking kindness that can heal the world. Each of my friends will be helping me to think about the themes in each chapter, 9 practical practices that can help us love ourselves, love our posse, and then love the world into healing. It all starts with you, and we're going to give you practical tips to make these practices a part of your life. Today's episode is inspired by Chapter 3 of my book, Fierce Love. Travel lightly. Downsize the burdens you carry. I invited my friend Valarie Kaur to come by today to talk with me about traveling lightly. She's the author of See No Stranger, a memoir of revolutionary love. She's an activist, an artist, a filmmaker, a mom, and she knows as well as anybody what it's like to downsize what we're carrying around with us so we can be revolutionary in our love. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Hello, my wonderful Valarie Kaur, my beautiful Jubilee friend. How are you?
Storm. It's such a joy to be with you in this moment.
I think Jubilee really fits you, right?
And just as Storm really fits you.
You do. I've had the pleasure to be having conversations in these times with some of our other ex-fellows, and each time I've been just sort of rehearsing the story of how we got to these names. How would you tell it from your point of view, hon?
Oh, it was Otis who named us, didn't he?
Yeah,
Bishop named us.
Yes, he did. Mm-hmm.
That very first gathering of senior fellows in the desert, it felt like we were gathering in a clearing, and Auburn Seminary, the organizers asked us to stand up and name our superpowers. And we all noticed how uncomfortable it was at the beginning to name them in ourselves, and that in self was a barrier, that actually to own your own greatness and that there's greatness in each of us is the obstacle that often needs to be removed in order to access our full power, potential, impact in the world. And so for Otis then to watch each of us and say, okay, I think I know what needs to be done. We all need to be named after superheroes.
That's right.
And he gave us all names. And oh my gosh, in the darkest moments, right? Jubilee fights with light. That's what she does.
That's right. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm always giggling thinking the power of naming, right? Like did we become what we were named or like what's the order of that? And is there some dynamic in it where I become more like Storm because I was named Storm?
Right.
Become more Light Warrior.
You were always Storm to us, right? You would change the weather. We saw you on the ground in the streets. The wake of Charleston, you can walk into a place where people are in trauma and grief, and then, read the winds and move the winds until everyone starts to sing together. You always were that to us. And I think there's something about naming it and being witnessed, and for all of us to hold up a mirror to say, no, this is who you are. This is who you are. That I have seen us, like you, me, to own it even more.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
To stretch
become more Jubilee, become more Storm. I love it. And gosh, if we could do that for all of our babies, right?
I know,
to name
right?
them into their greatness.
Oh my gosh, right? You say that and I think, I think, I think Lion King, right? And the naming of Simba and all those traditions of our ancestors of sort of looking at a baby and lifting up a baby and naming the baby. Of course, every time I do that, the thing I did with you there, my niece Rio, that is not how it goes. These are the words. Like, she knows, like, okay, I don't know I can't say them yet, but I believe you, my love.
I love it.
So your babies have beautiful names. Do they have significance in your tradition? And did you tell us about picking those names of Ananda and Kavi? Tell us about that.
Yeah. So Kavi means poet, but it has a deeper meaning in South Asian tradition. Like Kavi is to be like a sage poet. It's to see the world through the eyes of wonder. And my grandfather was a poet warrior, I would call him. And my husband's grandfather was also a really renowned poet in Kannada language. So we thought, how do we honor our grandfathers and honor that ancestry inside of him? Let's name him Kavi. It is not a common name, but he's really lived into it. I mean, the questions he asks me at night, oh my gosh, Storm, he'll ask me, I'll say, Kavi, you can ask me anything. He says, okay, mommy, why does life give birth to itself?
Why does life? Okay, mister.
I was like, ask me another question. He's like, okay, what is beyond the future? I know.
Oh my God.
This is Kavi at 6.
Who is the sweetest boy? I remember being on tour with you on that Together tour, and your parents and Kavi and Sharat and you and just like the whole family of just light warriors. Yes, all of you. Oh,
well, then now you have to be introduced to Ananda, because Ananda, I mean, I literally wrote my book. I wrote See No Stranger while pregnant with her, and it was such a painful pregnancy, Storm. It was just,
I remember.
I didn't know if, there was part of me that I didn't know if I was going to make it. And so writing the book almost became, just in case, what are the stories that I need her to know? And, there's no deadline, like a due date, right? So I couldn't extend it. Like he was going to come out. So I wrote finally this book that had been in me for, almost 2 decades. It finally came out, and I was sitting at this desk at which I'm speaking to you. And I wrote the last words, "May joy be your lifeblood," which was my letter to her. And got up, immediately went into active labor, and she was born 4 hours later.
Oh my God. And so she was like, let's go, mommy.
So we named her Ananda, which means like joy, but just like Kavi, it's like not just joy, it's divine, ecstatic joy. It's the thing that resounds inside of you when you feel the oneness with everything around you, the divine outside, the divine within, that kind of joy. That's her name.
Let's see if I can do this right. Is it Inkankar? No. What is that? Did I do it okay?
Yeah, ik onkar.
Ik onkar.
That's so beautiful, Storm. Yeah, ik onkar is the root of the Sikh faith. It is the first utterance in our scriptures, and it translates as, the oneness of the world and the oneness of humanity. And I take it to mean you can look upon the face of anyone or anything around you and say, you are a part of me I do not yet know.
I love that. Ikonkar. I remember when we were on the tour, you had a necklace that Shrat gave you with the symbol.
It's right here.
Yeah. You've taught me a lot about your tradition over the years.
I think that's what I've so loved about our friendship, is that it's one thing kind of rattling off facts to people who want to know more about the Sikh faith. Okay, there are 23 million worldwide. There are 500,000 in the U.S. This is why we wear our articles of faith. We believe in equality, service, one God. And there's another. It's an entirely different thing to be in a sisterhood with someone who sees how the faith is living and breathing through you. Yep. In the brave moments, in the dark moments, in the hard moments, like. And when those concepts, ik onkar or chardikala, ever rising, these things, that are breathing through me, you come to know them not as something you read in a book, but it becomes an experience that lives in your body because you're seeing your sister, and that's what you've done for me. At Middle, I every time I talk about Middle, I say I have never felt at home at a Christian church the way that I feel at home at Middle Church. I mean, it's the physical space. And now even if the physical space is not available to us, the virtual sacred space that you've created that is multiracial, multicultural, a place where I can feel fully seen and beloved.
Yeah.
And for you to invoke the divine and to tell stories of Jesus and that kind of space really, reanimated all of these Christian concepts that had been so oppressive to me for so much of my life. Like you gave them to me anew as medicine instead of bludgeon overhead. And that is quite the work of alchemy, my love. Let me tell you, talk about storm. Like you.
That is changing the weather, right? Right there.
Yes, that's right.
And I think it's just so important, Valarie, Jubilee, it's so important, Jubilee, that your testimony, I do carry in my soul, I carry the stories you've shared with me in my soul. And I carry your mama taking care of you while you have the baby. You know, some of the stories that you tell so beautifully in your book, See No Stranger, but also that I got to watch your mother be the mother who mothers you the way she mothers you, right? And the way you mother Covey, and the way your dad is kind of holding all of that. But I'm not in that birthing room, but I'm out here holding all of that. I'm holding all of that, right? and there's something about also then, love, holding that the Christian faith hurt you as a young person. Like I hold that too. I hold the stories you've told of feeling like you were treated like an outsider or called an outsider or, called a dog. I never forget that. People who claimed to love God hurt my friend. And I feel like that's our job also, right? If we're going to see each other's superpowers and affirm our superpowers, we have to be able to also see each other's wounded places, even healing places, even the faint scar of the healed place, to remember that we've been a part of it. We have been a part of hurting each other, and perhaps the memories of the stories, making your story my story, cherishing it, makes me responsible for your heart. And I think that's so important, to heal ourselves, that we be responsible for each other's hearts. What do you think about that?
That's so beautiful. It makes me think about what the true meaning of solidarity is. Like shallow solidarity is rooted in the logic of exchange. I show up for you, so you show up for me. Like I post your hashtag, you post my hashtag. And too many of our movements are operated on that logic. But deep solidarity is rooted in love and fierce love, and revolutionary love.
Yes.
It's the recognition that we belong to one another as sisters, brothers, siblings, that our movements are only as strong as our ability to love one another, and loving one another, that's only as deep as our ability to grieve with each other, to weep with each other. I have wept with you, Storm, and I have struggled with you, Storm, and I have raised my voice in song with you, Storm. I've marched with you, Storm, and the longevity of that kind of deep solidarity is like the embodiment of beloved community. And I keep thinking, it's been 20 years since I became an activist after 9/11, and I keep thinking about how much farther we have to go. And
oh my goodness, yeah.
The labor is not just a means to an end. The labor for justice has to be an end in itself. And if we show up with love and in relationship with sisters and brothers, like the relationship that we have, that makes it so that we are embodying the beloved community, even as we're trying to birth it out in the world. And that makes it enough.
It makes it enough. Yeah. I am so delighted to have cooked a book in my body for 9 years.
Yeah.
You were there reading drafts of this thing a long time ago. And then it took 9 months to sort of push it out, let's say the final labor pains, 9 months. And one of the things that's been just keeps ringing around and around in my head, Valarie, as we look at the world as it is how delighted I am to be in the world with other people who are clear that love is a powerful force of healing, change, transformation, revolution. That your work on revolutionary love and my work on revolutionary love, love period, just love, all the love ways we talk about it together, is fierce. It's fierce. It's fierce that we found a way to work together on kind of a shared learning, shared path, to share the concept, to be different and to be the same pointing, if you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
I think we modeled something really beautiful in the world about a Sikh love warrior and an African-American semi-Christian love warrior. Did you like the semi-Christian? Working
Says
together.
the minister.
Says the minister. But working together and all the ways that we've tried to amplify the voices of, our fellows where we can. I just think it's been a really beautiful experience, Valarie, to find ways to do that in a world that's absolutely a hot mess.
I agree. It's almost as if we are lifting all of our voices, our very different voices, to sing the same song.
Yes.
Or to participate in the same great symphony, and our voices are harmonizing.
Right.
They're different pitches, they're different even languages, but they're harmonizing to invite people into a new way of being. And of course, the song has gone on for thousands of years before us.
Exactly. It's not a new song.
Right.
And it's not even a new behavior to partner. It just feels to me like there are vibrations in the world that don't. There's systems and structures and vibrations that work against the love that we know we can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope that doesn't sound too simplistic, listeners, but right?
I do think, though, there's a newness in how we are lifting up the song now. I don't know if this kind of partnership that we have lived into the last decade, if that was as so common a generation ago.
True. No, that's right.
I feel like there are more of us now who are hearing ourselves in each other's stories and finding ways to build the deep solidarity that we've been talking about living into. And then that feels different. So many of the crises that we're facing now feel like previous traumas. I know after George Floyd's murder last summer, how so many, felt like this, this felt like 1992. It felt like 1968. And yet what happened is we saw images we never saw before, Black people kneeling in the street surrounded by white people in front of an army of police officers. Like, those images are new. like the rise of a multiracial, multi-faith, global uprising for Black lives. And I felt similarly after the shooting in Indianapolis this year on Sikh Americans, that it felt like Oak Creek in 2012. It felt like post 9/11. It felt like when my grandfather came a century ago. Nothing is new. The same traumas, the same white supremacist violence. And yet when we held a solidarity vigil in the wake of that, there were 10,000 people who showed up online and from all different faiths and backgrounds and movements, and to say, no, we are standing together. And this is where I feel like birthing labor offers a really useful metaphor for change, because as long as we're thinking about progress as linear in America, then we're sliding back into darkness. But if we think about America as a nation still waiting to be born,
right, and
that the story of this nation is one long labor, then progress in birthing labor is cyclical. It's not linear. It's cyclical. It's expansions and contractions. And every turn through the cycle feels like the previous trauma. But if enough of us show up, if more of us than ever before are showing up in the labor, the way that you show up for me and I show up for you, right, then we're creating a little bit more space than there was before for dignity, for equality. And here's the thing, Storm, I don't know how many more turns through the cycle it's going to take before we birth in America where we are all safe and free. But I know I want to show up to do my part in the labor. And the way that I have found the ability to do that is if I'm doing it with this ethic of love.
I just feel like there's just absolutely so much truth in that. So much truth in that.
Many of us feel increasing anger at injustice, violence, and indifference in our world today. Join us March 14th for What Do I Do With My Anger? An online gathering featuring Richard Rohr and Brian McLaren. Learn ways of transforming anger into loving action. Inspired by Father Richard's new book, The Tears of Things. Register today at cac.org/anger. That's cac.org/ANGER.
How many more cycles will it take is the boundary, the barrier, the we don't know-ness. But the truth that we do know is the love is the way. I love is the way and the truth and the life. That's why I say I'm kind of Christian. Because I think love is the way and the truth and the life, right? So you remember, Valarie, when we were working on drafts of this book long ago, when you came and were in residence at Middle Church, which just was wild. Yeah. I was always thinking, this way we do life, the way we do faith, is just so childish, churlish, mean, stingy, small. Wonder if we could get a grown-up God. Remember that language? Wonder if we could get a grown-up God. I believe you asked me a question one time that helped me to rethink that. Like, is that really a grown-up God? Or is it even is it a simpler, is it a simpler God? That's the language I adapted in my brain when you said that. And it made me think I wasn't really talking about God at all. Not that I'm not talking about God, but that this insight I was having wasn't about God so much as it was about us. That it was about how will we love each other? Whether we're doing God language or we're atheists, whether we're Sikh or Christian, whether we're gendered, how are we going to do human is really what it turned out that I was wrestling with.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that to get to something I've been letting go of, to be ready to be more in this movement the way I want to be in the movement. Like, I'm writing about three levels of love of self, love of posse, love of world, right? You read the book and blurbed it, thank God. But in the space of what do I need to stop dragging around with me so that I can be the love warrior I want to be, our friend Glennon. What do I need to not carry around with me so I can show up, Valarie, loving myself, so I can love my neighbor? What's anything that constricts me, impinges me, that I need to kind of let go of so I can actually really be the me I think I need to be to do the love I need to do? That's been an interesting personal query. And I gained 13 pounds during COVID and lost them. But there was something about the expansion and contraction that felt like labor. Feel me? Like I did all the things that we all did during COVID. I sat still too long. I worried too much. I sat on my butt and wrote this book. I didn't exercise enough. All the kinds of things. But I gained some weight with this pregnancy, right? I gained some weight with this pregnancy. And what I was pregnant with was like, this is beyond religion. This is beyond religion. This is a calling in of all the souls who know that we have the ability to heal the world. And how do you not have barriers in yourself so you can make no barriers for them to all come? Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. I came to this place, too, that love is a wellspring from which we all can drink. But we may be coming from the wellspring from different paths. So you may be coming over the mountain, and you may be coming through the desert, and you through the valley. So you're inspired by your Christian faith. I'm inspired by my Sikh faith. There's a humanist traditions and a deep, others are coming from so in love with science and placing our faith in science, and the fact that it's a cosmological and biological fact that we are part of everyone and everything around us. Like you can come to it from different sources of inspiration, but the love ethic itself is what is available for all of us.
Yes.
No matter who we are. And this is where I feel this when I read about you describing and I hear you calling for fierce love, that this is not, a rush of good feeling, right? This is love as a muscular ethic. And I describe it as like love as sweet labor. It's fierce and bloody and imperfect, life-giving, a choice that we make. And if love is labor, then love can be taught, love can be modeled, love can be practiced.
Yes.
And what I find so invigorating is that more and more of us now are naming the practices.
Yes.
How to be brave with your grief, how to honor your rage, how to let go of things that are dragging you down, and the little critic in your mind or in your consciousness that's keeping you from realizing your full self or following the path that is calling you. I feel like the more that we can share the good news around these practices.
Right. That's right.
Right. The more that we can say, well, all of us can have access to building beloved community where we are, right where we are.
That's right. And be the what? The midwife. I'm going to mess up some metaphors now. Be the midwife. Be the midwife of your own best self, your own lighter self, your own unburdened self. Not, again, fake, pretend behaviors that look like you've overcome. I mean, really looking at your stuff and owning your stuff and thinking, well, that no longer serves me, right? And here I am moving into the world with lighter baggage.
Well, that is what has been so, I don't know, it was just such an honor, Jacqui, to read those early drafts of Fierce Love. Because it was like I got to witness you getting so brave and putting stories on the page that were hard to name into the world, right? Like hard to grapple with. You had to reckon with your own trauma, your own healing, the messiness of it all, and to put it on the page, and then to see you in the process of like editing over the years, discern. It was almost like you're just discerning the consolidated wisdom of what you wanted to. So how perfect then that the chapter headings of the book are all about like the lessons, the shared practices, like let go of the baggage, travel lightly. Like it's really been profound to see you do that, even as a minister of your standing, to be brave enough to continue to go on a process of your own evolution and your own rebirthing. And like,
sweetie,
may we all be so brave.
I want to see you be brave. I hope we can keep that in there. Yeah. It's really beautiful, little sister, to have that affirmation from you, that you watched me wrestle it out.
Yeah.
Because I did, right? I had to really wrestle it out. I, who have not given birth, actually really gave birth
you
through
did.
this process. A ripping, a tearing, a sorrow, a joy, a taking breaths in between, John, being my birth coach. You can do it today. Come on, girl. Push it out. Breathe, push. My friend Valarie would say. And I just am thinking to myself, Valarie, the resonance I have always found in your, is this the darkness of the tomb or the darkness of the womb? And the ways that people gravitate to that, because there's something that we know is really true about it, right? That there is some truth about sometimes you need the dark, loamy place to grow the new thing, or you need the dark, loamy place to give birth to the new thing, and that our nation is in a time of transition, and that all of us who have suffered this last year need to feel the hope that these conversations bring, that your words bring, that I hope my words bring, that not only will we get through this is in itself, again, mixing metaphors, an episode or an in-between time, that if you were on a birthing table, that's that time, right, where you'd catch your breath and get the ice chips or get your head bathed, that we are squeezing, contracting as a society to give room, birth space in the cervix for the new thing to come out, not to be too graphic. But I think that resonates because we kind of know it.
Because we're feeling
in a primordial place, right? We feel it.
We are being stretched. We are being torn.
That's right.
And that question, Jacqui, is this the darkness of the tomb or the darkness of the womb? I've asked myself every day, and it is both. Mm-hmm. We have lost so much.
Yeah.
We are losing so much. I mean, between the pandemic and the racial violence, and the racial reckonings, the climate catastrophes. I mean, as we speak, there are fires in California that are threatening my beautiful sequoias, thousands of years old, these trees, and we can't get them back. Like, we are losing so much. It's the darkness of the tomb. And then to have the audacity to sit with that loss and that grief and that trauma and to lift our gaze and to insist on seeing the darkness of the womb. Like, what is emerging here that has not emerged before? What is wanting to be birthed? And I do feel like I am seeing, our relationship is a testament to this. I am seeing people waking up, being in relationship, grieving together, raging together, reimagining together, marching together, reimagining their own area of public life, their own sphere of influence, in ways that I never imagined possible before. Like, and in those acts, in those moments, in those gatherings around fierce love, that I feel like I see glimpses of the nation, the world that is wanting to be born. And so I train my eye, I train my eye to see.
To recognize it, to see it, to celebrate it. It's so important, Jubilee. One of my staff and I were talking yesterday, and it was just like one of those moments where you are doing work, but then you're actually having a real conversation about love and life at the same time. And I said, middle church testifies to me that what I write is true. I mean, you do too, right? Your work does too. But I wish there were just a way, I wish everyone in my congregation, all the people who've come and gone, all the ones who are there doing in this movement, the brave white people who sit around while I tell them about white supremacy, the brave African-American people who are wounded and traumatized and still come to church and sit next to the white people, right? It's just really true, right? Like, snaps to you all. And the Asians and the indigenous people and the Latinx people, just the way that the community dares to breathe together, dares to stand together, to sing together in a time, Valarie, in a place where we're just so wounded by the politic that is America, the politic that is global, of just bias and hatred and race-based violence and xenophobia. I mean, our love doesn't make those things less real. And so it is so brave to bring your light sword or your ability to change the weather or your fear and your vulnerability to these spaces where the work is being done, and stand there and just kind of grieve and love at the same time. Like, there's no luxury called it's not hard. It's hard. It's sweet labor, but it's hard. It's tough to show yourself to yourself and love yourself. I'm so proud of my congregation's bravery. I just hope if any one of them is listening, they'll hear me say, I love you, you brave person, you, for being in the movement with us, right?
I have been sitting at the feet of Grace Lee Boggs lately, her writings, and I keep thinking, okay, she lived till 100, right?
Right.
So what does it mean to find longevity in the labor for justice? And she writes, she writes that true movements will rise when those who have survived oppression stop seeing themselves as victims, but start seeing themselves as new human beings, as pioneers of a new way of doing human relations. Mm-hmm. And that's it. That's it, Jacqui. I keep thinking that what you're naming, what you're seeing in the testimonies of your middle church congregants, of showing up with the fear and the vulnerability and the discomfort and the grief, and then choosing to love, and the messy work of that fierce love, that revolutionary love, that is the living into what we want for the country as a whole.
Yep, that's right.
And that if we can equip, I keep thinking anti-racism is the bridge, but beloved community is the destination.
Destination, that's right.
And
I
if
totally agree with that.
we can create those containers, that middle church is a container for that, right? Like if we can create and nurture and inspire more and more of those containers, like every school, every home, every workplace, every church, every house of worship, right? Every neighborhood can become a pocket of that kind of beloved community, because this love stuff is not saintly. It's not mystical. It's, it's practical. It's pragmatic. There's a way
that's exactly right.
to do it. Yeah. And that's what your work does. That's what I hope our work does. And so many others, certainly in among the ex-fellows, equipping people with those tools. If we can equip a critical mass of us to practice in this way, then I see us in transition as a nation, as a world over the next 20, 25 years. And so could we be the ones in this invisible way, this quiet way? Revolutions don't just happen in those big, grand public moments, but in the spaces where people are coming together to inhabit a new way of being. Yep. Perhaps that's how we shift culture and consciousness over the long haul, to deliver get a little bit closer to what is wanting to be born.
I love you. I love the way you said that. Little spaces and tiny steps also, right? Classrooms. I was talking to some parents yesterday about creating a container for their kids at home, that they are the teachers, the kids are watching. And something you said just caught my, this is a fully unformed thought. Fully unformed thought. But there is a shedding that happens when we're all together in the messiness, in the love, I think. I don't want to get too graphic about what's going on inside a woman's body, but there's a change, there's a transformation. Maybe the reason that the powers that be want to separate us with hatred and fear and competition is because they know if we'll get together, we'll change. Like you changed me, Valarie. My congregants change me. My grandkids change me. You can't come together in solidarity with another who's different from you and also not become a little bit like them, a little changed by them, impacted by their narrative, right, by their story. So you are letting go of something. You have to. It just must happen, and it will happen. Something rinses off you, sloughs off you. You scrape yourself in their story, and it takes off something. My dad, oh my God, right? I'm thinking he's going to read this book and things are going to happen. I'll call you to come to the shore and be with you.
I'll be here for you.
My dad is so changed because of his relationship with John, or Rodney's wife, Dee Dee, who's Filipina. I mean, he just is different because there's a sloughing off, a shaping. John's different, in his relationship with me. So we are becoming, Valarie, in the close proximity of each other's stuff and stories and dreams and hopes. And we won't be the same when we get through this birth canal.
Yeah, I feel like so much of white nationalist aggression in this country is a symptom of unresolved grief. That they're grieving the notion this nation never belonged just to them in the first place, and that the nation is changing. And the truth is, yes, I want to say, yes, my love, it is changing.
Yes, it is.
We're becoming a multi-faith, multiracial, multicultural democracy. If we get this right, if we stay in the labor, that's the nation we will birth. And that nation has never been in the history of the world. Yes, it means transforming around you and within you. And that can be scary. That is scary. We're seeing how scary it is for so many people. And we're seeing out of those wounds, out of that, the limitations inside of them, how that manifests in force and violence. And I keep thinking if there are enough people who can midwife them along the way, then they can see that they don't have to be afraid of what we are becoming. So what you're naming in the witness of how we are transformed by each other in our personal relationships, like I feel like magnify that to what's happening in the country as a whole. And that takes a kind of bravery. It takes a kind of surrender and a kind of trust that where we'll come out on the other side as individuals and as a nation is richer and stronger and more beautiful than whatever was before.
That's really true, bud. So, Valarie, Jubilee.
Yes, story.
Right. What do you know for sure about love?
It's always here. In the moments when I feel alone or afraid or that it's absent, I just have to open my eyes, feel the earth beneath my feet, remember my grandfather's love in my body, know that separateness is an illusion. And if I just sink into the present moment here and now, I can access the love that has been poured into me, the love that I am capable of, the love that surrounds me on all sides. And that can give me enough energy to take the next breath and then push.
That's beautiful. That's so beautiful. And when I say fierce love, what comes up for you?
That's, of course I have the image of the birthing table and the blood and the ferocity and the messy and the labor of it all, right? It's like to love like that when the world's on fire, to love like that in the face of crises and oppressions on all sides, like to love like that, to insist on that is fierce.
Yes, it is.
That is fierce. And that is what I think we're inviting everyone into, to say, no, it's actually delicious too. It's the most vibrant way to be alive, is to live inside of this fierce love. Like it's like this heartbeat that's pulsating through you. It's the universe breathing through you. It's, when you surrender yourself to it, when you give yourself to it, it carries you. Because you're never alone in it.
Never alone in it. That's beautiful, my friend.
I love you so much.
I love you too.
I fiercely love you.
I fiercely love you too. Thanks for listening to this conversation today. Valarie and I both think a lot about the metaphor of giving birth, of midwifing our best selves, our most loving selves. And so I want to leave you with this thought today. Is there any part of you that is yearning to be reborn? Any part of you that wants to push through burdens and problems and be lighter in the world? I'd like you to think of me and Valarie as your midwives, encouraging you to take a deep breath and to push forward to the new you of tomorrow. And remember, along this journey, things might feel heavy and you might not even feel light enough to lift up your love in the world. Remember that even the unforgiven hurts, the bitter resentments, and hard feelings that weigh you down have stories for you, wisdom for you, insight for you. Your job is to feel the feelings, to learn the lessons, and then let the heaviness go.